Somewhere between the instant you press a button and the instant the page answers, a decision has already been made about you. You asked to log in, or to sign up, or to check out, or to post a single sentence, and in the sliver of a second before anything appeared to happen, an invisible verdict was reached, not by a person, by a model running quietly on the other side of the connection. They had already gathered up hundreds of small facts about you and your device and the way you were behaving, weighed them all at once, and produced a single number, a number you will never see, that no one will ever show you, that decides whether the door in front of you opens easily, opens with a test attached, opens into a waiting room, or does not open at all. This is the story of that number, the quiet score that sits underneath nearly everything you do online, deciding, before you have done anything wrong, whether the internet is going to treat you like a person or like a threat. The hidden number. Start with the thing itself, because it hides in plain sight. Almost every meaningful action you take on a large platform is scored in real time. Not just the obvious ones you might expect, like moving money out of a bank, but the ordinary ones too. Opening an account, signing in, adding an item to a cart, leaving a comment, asking to reset a password. Behind each of those actions sits a system whose only job is to answer one question in a few thousandths of a second. How much should we trust this, right now, from this particular someone? The answer comes back as a value, sometimes called a risk score, sometimes a trust score. The two being the same idea read from opposite ends. Low risk is high trust, high risk is low trust, and the whole apparatus exists to place you somewhere along that line before it decides what to do with you. You never see the number itself. You only ever feel its consequences, the moment. And the moment it fires is more precise than most people imagine. The score is not a slow background judgment formed about you over weeks. It is computed at the instant of an action, fresh, for that action alone. The very same person can be scored as safe when they log in from a familiar place on a familiar morning, and scored as suspicious when they attempt a large purchase from a new device that same night. Because the score is not really about who you are. It is about how this specific event looks compared to the vast ocean of events the system has already seen. Every login is a new question. Every checkout is asked again from scratch. The model does not remember you the way a person would remember a friend. It reevaluates you continuously, action by action, and each time it reaches into the same enormous pile of signals and asks the same thing anew. The signals, and that pile of signals is the real engine of the whole thing, and it is far larger than most people would guess. This is where all the other pieces you may have heard of arrive as ingredients, not as the meal. The reputation of the network address you came in on, whether it looks like a home, a data center, or a pool of mobile connections shared by thousands of strangers. The fingerprint of your device, and the subtle way it renders and negotiates its connection. The velocity of your actions, how fast, how often, how many in a row, measured against a normal human rhythm. Your history on the platform, or the conspicuous absence of any. The faint texture of how you type and move and pause. None of these on its own means very much. A single weak signal is easy to fake and easy to misread, and any honest engineer will tell you that acting on just one would be reckless. But the system does not use any of them alone. It gathers hundreds of these faint, unreliable hints together, and that is where the power comes from. Not from any one of them being decisive, but from how many of them there are and how they line up. The fusion is the clever part, and it is worth being precise about what it is not. It is not a checklist where some person wrote down, if this and this and this, then block. The earliest versions did work a little like that. A set of handwritten rules, and they were brittle and easy to slip past once someone learned the list. The modern version is a statistical model that has been shown enormous numbers of past events, each one labeled after the fact as having turned out fine or turned out to be fraud. And from those examples it has learned, on its own, which combinations of weak signals tend to travel together with trouble. It does not know why. It has no story about you and holds no grudge. It has simply found the patterns that historically separated the good events from the bad, and it collapses all those hundreds of inputs down into one number that estimates the probability that this action right now is the bad kind. That is all the score really is, a probability wearing the costume of a verdict. The four doors, and then the number meets the doors, and there are four of them. Once the score exists, the platform has to actually do something with it. And almost every system reduces the whole continuous range down to a small handful of outcomes. If the score sits comfortably in the safe band, the first door opens and you pass straight through, never knowing you were weighed at all, which is what happens to you the overwhelming majority of the time. If the score is uncertain, sitting somewhere in the murky middle, the second door adds a test, a captcha, a code sent to your phone, a request to confirm something only the real person should know. If the score is worse than that, the third door routes you quietly into manual review, where the action is held while a human, or a slower and heavier system, takes a longer look before deciding your case. And if the score is bad enough, the fourth door simply does not open. The action is refused, usually with a vague and unhelpful message, and you are left with no real idea why. The challenge is the score, and here is the detail that almost nobody connects. The friction you occasionally hit is not random, and it is not just bad luck. That sudden capture, that unexpected demand for a one-time code, that message asking you to verify your identity for no reason you can see, is the score becoming briefly visible. It is the precise moment your action landed in the uncertain band, not trusted enough to wave through, not distrusted enough to refuse outright. So the system reached for a test to gather one more piece of evidence and push you off the fence in one direction or the other. Every time you are challenged, you are seeing the shadow of a number that was almost, but not quite, sure about you. The vast majority of the time, the score is confident, and you feel absolutely nothing. The challenge is simply what confidence looks like in the rare moment it wavers. The model that learns, and none of this ever holds still, which is the part that makes it so hard to reason about. The model is not a fixed wall you can learn the shape of and quietly root around. It is retrained, again and again, on the newest wave of events, which means the very definition of what looks suspicious keeps shifting under everyone's feet. A pattern that sailed straight through last month may draw a challenge this month because the system has since watched that pattern get used in an attack and has quietly adjusted its weights against it. It is adaptive by design, always chasing the moving behavior of the people trying to abuse it. And that adaptation is exactly why nobody, not even the engineers who build it, can hand you a simple, stable list of what will trip it. The honest answer is always, it depends on everyone else, on what the last million events looked like, on what fraud happened to look like yesterday. You are being judged against a crowd that never stops moving, invisible by design. And the invisibility is not an accident or an oversight. It is a deliberate and load-bearing feature. The score is hidden on purpose, because the instant anyone could see their own number, or read a clear list of exactly which signals moved it, the whole thing would begin to come apart. The people the system most wants to catch would simply read the rules, tune each signal until their number came out clean, and walk straight through the front door. So the machinery is kept deliberately opaque, its thresholds unpublished, its weights secret, its reasoning unexplained even to the person it has just judged. That secrecy is genuinely doing work. It is a real part of what lets the system function at all against the patient and determined adversary. But it is also the exact source of the deepest problem with the whole approach. Because a system that refuses to explain itself to the guilty cannot explain itself to the innocent either. So it is worth being fair about what this machinery is actually for, because it is easy to hear all of this and picture only a cold eye judging you unfairly. The honest truth is that the invisible score is a large part of what makes the modern internet usable at all. Every popular platform lives under constant industrial-scale attack. Millions of automated attempts to spin up fake accounts, drain stolen cards, hijack the logins of real people, and flood every open space with spam and worse. No human team on Earth could ever review that firehose by hand. The score is what lets the overwhelming majority of genuine people pass through instantly, feeling nothing, while the mass of automated abuse is quietly absorbed, challenged, and turned away in the very same invisible instant. When it works well, you never notice it at all, which is precisely the point. The calm you experience on a well-run platform, The sense that things simply work is in large part the sound of this machinery succeeding without ever announcing itself. The double-edged, but name the double-edged squarely because it is real and it cuts. A system this powerful and this opaque has no natural place for the innocent exception. The model deals in probabilities across a crowd, and probabilities across a crowd will always inevitably sweep up some people who did nothing wrong at all. The traveler who logs in from a country they have never once visited. The brand new user with no history whatsoever, who looks statistically identical to a freshly minted fake. The person on a shared mobile address whose network reputation was already spent by strangers they will never meet. The simply unusual, whose ordinary life happens to trace a shape the model has learned to distrust. To the score, unusual and dangerous can look almost the same, because it has no way to tell a rare honest story from a clever dishonest one. And when it decides against you, there is usually no explanation offered, and no genuine way to appeal, because explaining would arm the adversary, and appealing does not scale to millions. You are simply, quietly, treated as a risk, and left to guess at why, what it is really about. So here is the part to sit with. You tend to imagine that being doubted or blocked online is a response to something you actually did, a specific mistake with a specific cause you could find and fix if only someone would tell you. But much of the time, it is not about anything you did at all. It is a probability, computed in a millisecond, about how much your action happened to resemble a pattern of trouble, drawn from millions of strangers you will never know existed. There is a number attached to you at nearly every door, and it is built not from your intentions but from your resemblance to the crowd. Once you understand that, the internet reads a little differently. The friction, the tests, the quiet refusals are not really the system reacting to you as a person. They are the system reacting to a shadow of you, assembled from weak signals and old fraud that stands in for you at every threshold you cross, and that you will never once be allowed to see. If this is the kind of thing you find yourself thinking about, the quiet machinery under the everyday internet, then this channel is your sort of place. There is no product to sell you here. It is just the systems taken apart and explained by someone who has spent a long time on the inside of them. Subscribe and follow the rabbit hole. Next time we are going to look at how a device proves that it is real. Not a password, not a code typed by a person, but the phone itself, quietly presenting a piece of cryptographic evidence to a bank or an app that says, "I am genuine hardware, untampered, exactly what I claim to be." We will look at how that proof gets made, why it is so hard to forge, and what quietly happens in the background to the devices that for one reason or another simply cannot produce it.